Imagine holding a small copper coin in your hand, something so common that most people barely look at it twice. Now imagine discovering that the same coin could quietly hold a surprising value, a hidden history, and a story tied directly to one of the most fascinating transitions in American coinage. That is exactly what the 1960 Lincoln penny represents. And what most people never realize is how much detail and history is packed into this 1-cent piece. The 1960 Lincoln penny is a United States 1-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint in the year 1960. At first glance, it looks like any ordinary penny you might find in your pocket change. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But this coin comes from an important period in U.S. minting history when small design and production changes created variations that collectors still study closely today. To understand why this coin matters, you have to step back into the early 1960s. The United States Mint was producing billions of pennies each year due to rising demand in everyday commerce. The economy was growing, and pennies were still heavily used in transactions. In 1960 alone, the Mint produced two major versions of the Lincoln cent, one from Philadelphia without a mint mark, and one from Denver with the small letter D under the date. That D is what identifies this coin as coming from the Denver Mint. But there is more going on in 1960 than just mint locations. This was also a transitional year in coin design details. The Mint made subtle adjustments to the size of the date on the front of the coin, creating what collectors now call the large date and small date varieties. While this distinction is more famous in the Philadelphia issues, it still adds context to why 1960 pennies, including the Denver version, are studied so carefully. The design of the 1960 Lincoln penny was created by Victor David Brenner, whose portrait of Abraham Lincoln first appeared on the penny in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. On the front, Lincoln's profile faces right, with the words "In God We Trust" above him, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1960 to the right, followed by the small D mint mark under the date. On the reverse, you see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had only been introduced in 1959, replacing the earlier wheat stalk reverse. This makes the 1960 penny part of the early Lincoln Memorial cent era, which ran from 1959 to 2008. If you look closely at the memorial, you can actually see the statue of Abraham Lincoln inside, a small but powerful detail that many people miss. In terms of composition, the 1960 penny is made of 95% copper, with the remaining 5% made up of zinc and tin. This gives the coin its classic reddish-brown color when well preserved. It also means that over time, many of these pennies naturally tone into darker shades, sometimes even turning chocolate brown after decades of circulation. Now, when people hear old coin, they often assume it must be rare or valuable. But here is where the 1960 penny becomes interesting. It is not rare in the traditional sense. In fact, billions were minted, making it a very common coin in circulated condition. You can still find them in old jars, collections, and even occasionally in pocket change. However, what makes this coin special is not its overall mintage, but its condition, varieties, and certain minting errors. Most circulated 1960 pennies are worth only a few cents to a couple of dollars at most. But when you move into higher grades, especially coins that have never been used and remain in mint state condition, the value can increase significantly. A sharply struck 1960 Lincoln cent in MS65 red condition might sell for around $10 to $20, depending on demand. In even higher grades like MS66 or MS67 red, prices can rise into the hundreds of dollars, especially if the coin has exceptional eye appeal. Collectors also pay attention to errors and variations. One of the most interesting possibilities with this coin includes repunched mint marks, where the D appears slightly doubled due to the minting process. There can also be minor die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the coin's surface caused by worn dies. While these errors do not always make a coin extremely valuable, they do make it more desirable to collectors who enjoy unique pieces. Another area of interest is strike quality. Some 1960 pennies were struck more sharply than others, especially early production coins. A strong strike with clear details in Lincoln's hair and the memorial columns can significantly increase collector appeal. On the other hand, weak strikes or heavily circulated examples tend to stay at face value or only slightly above it. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1960D penny in your hands? The first step is to check the date and mint mark. Look for 1960 on the front and a small d just below the date. Next, examine the condition. Is the coin bright red and sharp, or is it dark and worn? Original red color is a major factor in value. Coins that still maintain most of their original mint luster are far more valuable than brown, heavily circulated ones. You should also look closely at the details. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Check Lincoln's face, hair, and beard on the front. Then examine the columns of the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Strong detail often indicates a better strike and better preservation. Finally, look for anything unusual, such as doubling, cracks, or misaligned features. However, it is also important to be cautious. Because Lincoln cents are widely collected, there are many altered or misleading coins in the market. Some sellers try to artificially enhance color or clean coins to make them look more valuable. Cleaning a coin, even lightly, can actually reduce its value significantly in the eyes of serious collectors. A natural, uncleaned surface is always preferred. There are also counterfeit coins, although they are less common for a coin like the 1960D penny. Most fakes involve altered dates or added mint marks rather than full counterfeits. That is why authentication by condition grading services is often used for high-value specimens. One surprising fact about the 1960D penny is that despite being so common, it plays a key role in teaching collectors how to grade coins. Many beginners start with Lincoln cents because they are affordable and widely available, and the 1960 issues are often used as examples for learning differences in strike quality, color, and condition. Collectors also appreciate this coin because it represents a bridge between two eras. It belongs to the early Lincoln Memorial series, a design that would last nearly half a century. Holding one is like holding a small piece of everyday American history from a time when coins were still heavily used in daily life, long before digital payments became common. There is also something nostalgic about it. Many people remember finding these pennies in childhood, saving them in jars, or receiving them as pocket change from older relatives. That emotional connection adds another layer to why this coin remains popular today, even if it is not the rarest in the series. Today, collectors continue to search for high-grade examples of the 1960D Lincoln penny because of one simple reason: quality. While the coin itself is not rare, finding one in near-perfect condition is much harder than most people expect. Millions were made, but very few survived untouched by time, handling, and circulation. In the end, the 1960D Lincoln penny is a reminder that value in coin collecting is not always about rarity alone. Sometimes it is about condition, history, and the small details that most people overlook. A coin that once bought a piece of candy or a newspaper can now, in the right condition, be worth far more than its face value. So the next time you come across a handful of old pennies, take a closer look. Among them might be a 1960D Lincoln cent that tells a quiet story of American minting history, waiting patiently to be noticed again. And what seems ordinary at first glance might just turn out to be something far more interesting than you ever expected. What if I told you that a penny sitting in your pocket right now could carry more history than most people ever imagine, and that one specific year and mint mark combination from 1979 is quietly hiding in plain sight across the United States, overlooked by millions every single day? Most people would never even pause to look at it, but collectors know that sometimes the most ordinary coin can open a door into a surprising story of American minting, massive production numbers, and rare hidden errors that can turn a 1-cent piece into something far more interesting than its face value suggests. Today we are taking a deep look at the 1979D Lincoln penny, a coin that may look simple at first glance, but carries a story tied to one of the busiest periods in modern U.S. coin production. This is not a coin that became famous for being rare in the traditional sense. Instead, its importance comes from its massive circulation, its subtle variations, and the few unusual examples that collectors actively search for today. The 1979D Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series that began in 1909. By 1979, the design was already familiar to every American. On the front of the coin is Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, whose image has appeared on the penny for decades. Above him is the word Liberty, and the year 1979 sits to one side. Just beneath the date, you will find a small letter D, which stands for the Denver Mint, where this coin was produced. On the back is the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was introduced in 1959 and continued until 2008. If you look closely at the memorial, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln sitting between the columns. To understand the 1979 D penny, you need to understand what was happening in the United States at that time. The late 1970s were a period of rising inflation, heavy coin circulation, and extremely high demand for small change. The economy required billions of coins to keep everyday transactions moving. The U.S. Mint responded by producing massive quantities of pennies, and the Denver Mint played a major role in that effort. In 1979 alone, the Denver Mint struck billions of Lincoln cents. The exact number is so large that it becomes difficult to imagine in everyday terms. This means the 1979 D penny is not rare in terms of mintage. In fact, it is one of the most commonly found pennies from the late 20th century. You can still find them in coin jars, old wallets, and even in circulation today. So if it is so common, why are people even interested in it? The answer lies in details. Small variations, minting quirks, and condition can completely change how collectors view this coin. The 1979 D penny was struck using a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. This was before the major change in 1982, when the U.S. Mint switched to mostly zinc-coated pennies. Because of this copper composition, the 1979 D penny has a heavier feel and a warmer color compared to modern cents. The design itself is standard, but collectors often examine these coins under magnification to look for subtle differences. One area of interest is the mint mark. The D mint mark was hand-punched onto working dies during this era, which means slight variations can occur. In some cases, the mint mark may appear filled, weak, or slightly doubled. These small imperfections are not dramatic errors, but they can attract collector attention. Another area of interest is the possibility of minting errors. While most 1979 D pennies are completely normal, a few error types do exist. Some examples include off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly aligned on the coin. Others include clipped planchets, where part of the coin appears missing due to a cutting error during production. There are also minor strike-through errors, where foreign material briefly interfered with the minting process, leaving unusual marks on the surface. One of the more talked-about varieties among collectors is the possibility of minor double die features. A double die occurs when the coin die itself has a slight misalignment during its creation, causing parts of the design to appear doubled. In the case of the 1979 D penny, any doubling is usually very subtle, often requiring close inspection. It is not one of the major famous double die pennies like some earlier Lincoln cents, but it still creates interest among variety collectors. Now let's talk about value, because this is where expectations often need to be adjusted. The truth is, most 1979 D Lincoln pennies are only worth face value. That means 1 cent. Even in circulated condition, they usually remain worth exactly what they were intended for in commerce. However, condition changes everything. A well-preserved, uncirculated example, especially one with strong original red color, can be worth a bit more. In higher mint state grades, such as MS65 red, collectors may pay a few dollars. In exceptional cases, where a coin reaches MS67 red or higher with strong eye appeal, values can rise into the tens or sometimes even over $100, depending on collector demand at the time. Error coins are where things become more interesting. A 1979 D penny with a clear and dramatic mint error, such as a major off-center strike or a significant clipped planchet, can sell for much higher than normal examples. Some of these error coins have sold in the range of $20 to several $100s, depending on how visible and dramatic the error is. It is important to understand that the coin's value is not based on the year alone. The key factors are condition, rarity of the error, and demand among collectors. Without these elements, the 1979 D penny remains a common coin. If you are trying to identify a genuine 1979 D penny, there are a few simple steps you can take. First, check the date clearly. It should read 1979 without any alterations. Next, look just below the date for the small, D mint mark. Make sure it is consistent with standard Denver mint placement. Then examine the coin's surface. Authentic coins from this era should show normal wear patterns or mint luster if uncirculated. Be cautious of coins that look artificially shiny or altered, as cleaning can significantly reduce collectible value. Weight can also be a helpful clue. A standard 1979 penny should weigh around 3.11 grams. If a coin feels significantly lighter or heavier, it could indicate damage, alteration, or a possible error coin worth further inspection. Counterfeits of common pennies like this are not very common, but altered coins do exist. Some people attempt to modify mint marks or artificially enhance coins to make them appear rare. This is why collectors rely heavily on close inspection and sometimes professional grading services to confirm authenticity. There are also a few fun and surprising facts about this coin. For example, the year 1979 was part of a massive production era for U.S. pennies, meaning billions of nearly identical coins were released into circulation. Yet even among billions, no two coins are exactly the same under high magnification. Tiny differences in strike pressure, die wear, and metal flow make each coin slightly unique. Another interesting detail is how long these coins have stayed in circulation. Even today, decades later, you can still find 1979 D pennies in everyday change. That kind of longevity shows just how deeply the Lincoln cent has been embedded into American daily life. Collectors also appreciate this coin not because it is rare, but because it represents the reality of modern minting. It is a reminder that not every collectible has to be scarce to be meaningful. Sometimes the story behind a coin is just as valuable as its price. Many coin enthusiasts enjoy searching through rolls of pennies hoping to find unusual varieties or high-grade examples. The 1979 D penny is often part of that search. It teaches patience, attention to detail, and the excitement of discovering something unexpected in an ordinary place. In the end, the 1979 D Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how everyday objects can carry hidden layers of history. It may not be a legendary rarity, but it still holds a place in the long story of American coinage. From massive mint production to subtle errors and collector interest, this small copper coin continues to attract curiosity more than 4 decades after it was made. So the next time you come across a 1979 penny with a small D beneath the date, take a closer look. You might be holding a piece of history that most people would never think twice about, yet for those who understand it, even the smallest details can make all the difference. And that leaves one final question worth thinking about. If a simple 1-cent coin can still hide surprises after all these years, what other everyday coins in your pocket might be waiting to be discovered? Most people would never think twice about a penny dated 1993. It looks ordinary, almost invisible in your hand, just another copper-colored coin mixed into pocket change. But what if that small coin is hiding a story most people never hear? And what if, in rare cases, it could be worth far more than 1 cent? Today, we are looking at the 1993 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that is often overlooked, but still carries interesting history, hidden variations, and small surprises that collectors quietly search for even today. The 1993 D penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series in the United States. It was struck at the Denver Mint, which is why it carries the small D mark just below the date on the front of the coin. At first glance, it is one of the most common coins in American circulation, but its story becomes more interesting when you understand why it was made, how it was produced, and what collectors look for when they study it closely. The Lincoln penny design itself dates back to 1909, created to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By 1993, this design had already been in use for over 80 years, making it one of the most familiar coins in American history. The front of the coin still shows Lincoln's portrait, while the back features the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was introduced in 1959 and continued until 2008. In 1993, the United States Mint produced billions of pennies to support everyday commerce. The economy depended heavily on small change, and the penny remained essential for cash transactions. The Denver Mint alone struck a massive number of these coins, making the 1993 D penny extremely common in circulation. Because of this high mintage, most 1993 D pennies are not rare in the traditional sense. You can still find them in coin jars, old wallets, and bank rolls. In circulated condition, they are typically worth only face value. However, the story does not end there. Within this ordinary coin lies a world that collectors find fascinating, especially when it comes to errors, condition, and subtle variations that can change its value. The 1993 D Lincoln penny is made primarily of copper-plated zinc. By the early 1980s, the United States had already shifted away from mostly copper pennies due to rising metal costs. So by 1993, pennies had a zinc core with a thin copper coating. This change helped reduce production costs, but it also created new types of minting issues that collectors still study today. One of the most interesting aspects of any modern penny, including the 1993 D, is the possibility of mint errors. These are mistakes that happen during the coin production process. While most coins are struck perfectly and released into circulation, a small number come out with unusual characteristics. For the 1993 D penny, some of the known error types include off-center strikes, die cracks, and minor doubling on letters or numbers. An off-center strike happens when the coin is not properly aligned during minting, causing part of the design to appear shifted. Die cracks happen when the metal die used to strike the coin begins to wear out and develops cracks, leaving raised lines on the coin surface. Another area collectors examine closely is what is called doubling. This occurs when the coin design appears slightly doubled due to movement during the striking process. On a 1993 D penny, most doubling is minor and not extremely valuable, but in the world of coin collecting, even small anomalies can attract attention. Now, it is important to be clear. The 1993 D penny is not considered a rare key-date coin. There is no widely recognized ultra-rare variety that turns it into a high-value treasure by default. However, condition plays a major role. A coin that has never been used, known as uncirculated or mint state, can be worth more than a worn one. In top-grade condition, especially those graded by professional coin grading services, a 1993 D penny can sometimes reach a few dollars or more, depending on quality. Collectors also pay attention to color. A bright red penny in mint condition is generally more desirable than one that has turned brown or dark over time. This is because original mint luster is a sign that the coin has not been heavily exposed to air and handling. Auction records for the 1993 D penny are not dramatic, but they are still interesting. Most circulated examples sell for 1 cent to a few cents in bulk. Uncirculated rolls can sell for a few dollars. Individually graded high-quality examples may sell for anywhere from $5 to $20 in some cases, depending on grading and buyer demand. While this is not life-changing money, it shows how even a common coin can gain value when preserved in excellent condition. The real excitement with coins like the 1993 D penny often comes from searching. Many collectors enjoy hunting through rolls of pennies from banks, hoping to find perfectly preserved examples or rare mint mistakes. It is not uncommon for people to search through thousands of coins just to find one that stands out. So how do you identify a real 1993 D penny and avoid confusion with altered or fake coins? The good news is that because this coin is so common, counterfeits are not a major issue compared to rare coins. Still, there are things to watch for. A genuine 1993 D penny will have a clear D mint mark under the date. The details of Lincoln's portrait should be sharp, even if the coin is worn. The reverse should show the Lincoln Memorial with visible columns. If the coin looks unusually shiny but has soft or blurry details, it could be polished or altered, which lowers collector value. One thing to be careful about is coins that are artificially modified to appear rare. Some sellers may try to add unusual features or claim extreme value without proof. In coin collecting, authenticity and grading are everything, so it is always important to compare with verified examples or consult a grading service for high-value claims. There are also a few surprising facts about the 1993 D penny that many people do not know. For example, even though billions were made, a large number of them have been lost to time, damage, or melting in scrap metal processes over the years. Another interesting detail is that pennies from the early 1990s are becoming less common in everyday circulation simply because people tend to save or discard them instead of spending them. Collectors are also drawn to this coin because it represents a transitional period in modern U.S. coin production. By the early 1990s, minting technology was improving, quality control was becoming more advanced, and yet small imperfections still slipped through, creating the types of minor errors collectors love to study. Another reason collectors appreciate the 1993 penny is accessibility. Unlike rare gold coins or early silver currency, this penny is easy to find and affordable to collect. It allows beginners to enter the world of numismatics without a large investment. Many experienced collectors also enjoy keeping examples of common date pennies as part of complete year sets. Over time, even ordinary coins can gain historical interest. The 1993 penny is now over 30 years old, which means it has already lived through decades of economic change, technological shifts, and cultural history. Something that once passed through vending machines and cash registers is now becoming a small piece of history. For some collectors, that is the real value. Not just money, but the connection to a specific time in American life. Holding a 1993 penny is like holding a tiny snapshot of the early 1990s economy, when cash was still widely used and pennies still played a daily role in transactions. As more years pass, coins like this will slowly disappear from circulation. They will be replaced by newer mintages, stored in collections, or lost entirely. That natural fading from everyday use is part of what makes even common coins interesting over time. In the end, the 1993 Lincoln penny may not be a legendary rarity, but it still has a place in the larger story of American coinage. It reminds us that value is not always obvious at first glance. Sometimes it is hidden in condition, sometimes in small minting errors, and sometimes simply in the passage of time itself. So the next time you come across a 1993 penny with a small d under the date, take a closer look before you dismiss it. Because even the most ordinary coin in your hand might still carry a quiet story waiting to be noticed. At first glance, it looks like just another ordinary penny you might find in your pocket or under a car seat. But what if that small copper-colored coin from 1998 is not as ordinary as it seems? What if a tiny missing detail on it could turn a 1-cent piece into something collectors quietly search for every single day? That is exactly why the 1998 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has become such a curious topic among coin collectors and everyday people alike. To understand the story, we need to start with what this coin actually is. The 1998 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, which began all the way back in 1909. These coins feature the profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front, honoring one of the most important presidents in American history. On the back in 1998, you will see the Lincoln Memorial design, which was used on pennies from 1959 until 2008. So in design terms, this is not a strange or unusual coin. It looks familiar, even common. But the mystery comes from something people notice when they look closely: the mint mark, or sometimes the absence of it. In the United States coin system, a mint mark is a small letter that tells you where a coin was made. A D means Denver, an S means San Francisco, and coins made in Philadelphia often have no mint mark at all. So when people hear 1998 no mint mark penny, many assume it must be rare or unusual. But here is where things get interesting and also a bit confusing. In 1998, millions of Lincoln pennies were produced at the Philadelphia Mint without any mint mark at all. That means a normal 1998 penny without a mint mark is not rare. In fact, it is the standard version of the coin for that mint. However, the story does not end there. Because while most 1998 no mint mark pennies are completely normal, collectors are actually interested in specific mistakes or unusual variations that can appear within that year's production. And this is where things start to get exciting. To understand why, we need to take a step into how coins are made. Every coin begins with a steel die that stamps the design onto blank metal discs. If something goes wrong during this process, small errors can appear on thousands or even just a few coins before the mistake is caught. These errors can include missing details, doubling of letters, weak strikes, or misaligned designs. In rare cases, these mistakes escape into circulation, where they are discovered years later by sharp-eyed collectors. For the 1998 Lincoln cent, one of the most talked-about situations involves confusion between regular Philadelphia coins and certain error varieties from other mints. The Philadelphia pennies naturally have no mint mark, so they look plain. But the San Francisco proof versions, which are specially made collector coins, are supposed to carry an S mint mark. In very rare cases, collectors have searched for proof coins where the mint mark is missing or weak, or where something unusual happened during the striking process. While these are not common, no mint mark Philadelphia pennies, they are the kinds of minting mistakes that drive collector interest in this year. Another reason the 1998 penny gets attention is because of the overall condition and strike quality. The late 1990s were part of a high-production era for U.S. coinage. The U.S. Mint was producing massive numbers of coins for everyday use, and quality control was sometimes secondary to speed. This means that while most coins are ordinary, small variations can exist that make certain examples more desirable in high grades. The metal composition is also worth understanding. By 1998, Lincoln pennies were no longer made mostly of copper like the older coins before 1982. Instead, they were made of a zinc core with a thin copper coating. This change was done to reduce production costs. While this makes the coin less valuable in terms of metal content, it also means the surface is more prone to certain types of wear, plating issues, and discoloration. In some cases, these characteristics can make unusual-looking pennies stand out, even if they are not true mint errors. So why do people still think the 1998 no mint mark penny is rare? The answer is simple: misunderstanding and online hype. Many people hear no mint mark and assume it means something is missing or wrong. But for Philadelphia coins, no mint mark is exactly what is supposed to be there. The real value only appears when there is a true minting error, or when the coin is in extremely high, uncirculated condition. Now let's talk about value, because this is where expectations often collide with reality. A normal 1998 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is worth exactly 1 cent in everyday circulation. Even in uncirculated condition, it might be worth only a few dollars at most. However, certain error varieties or special conditions can increase interest. For example, coins with strong doubling in the lettering or unusual striking errors can sometimes sell for anywhere from a few dollars to over $100, depending on how dramatic the error is and how well it is preserved. In rare collector cases, especially for proof-related minting mistakes or exceptionally unusual errors, prices can go higher, sometimes reaching several $100s. But it is important to understand that these are not common examples of the 1998 penny. They are exceptions, not the rule. Most coins people find in pocket change are standard issues with no additional value beyond face value. There have also been auction listings over the years where unusual 1998 Lincoln cents in top condition or with minor errors have sold to collectors who specialize in modern U.S. coinage. These collectors are often interested in completing full sets or finding unusual varieties that are not widely known. However, serious coin experts always emphasize that condition and authenticity matter far more than rumors or internet claims. If you ever come across a 1998 penny and want to check if it is special, there are a few simple things to look for. First, check the date and confirm it is clearly 1998. Next, look at the front of the coin for the presence or absence of a mint mark. If it has no letter under the date, it is most likely a Philadelphia issue and completely normal. If you see a D or S, then you are dealing with Denver or San Francisco production. After that, inspect the coin closely under good lighting. Look for doubling in the letters of Liberty, or In God We Trust, uneven edges, or unusual marks that do not look like normal wear. Finally, consider the condition. A coin that looks brand new, with sharp details and no scratches, is always more interesting to collectors than one that is heavily worn. One surprising fact about Lincoln pennies in general is how often people overlook small details that could matter. Even though billions of pennies are produced every decade, only a tiny fraction ever become collectible errors. That means most people pass them by without ever realizing what they are looking at. This is part of what makes coin collecting so fascinating. Every coin has a story, even if most of them are common. Collectors also love the 1998 penny because it represents a modern era of U.S. coin production. Unlike ancient or early coins, these pieces are still relatively new in historical terms. Yet they already carry decades of circulation history. Many collectors enjoy searching through rolls of pennies from banks, hoping to find something unusual hiding in plain sight. The thrill is not just about value, but discovery. Another interesting detail is that modern coins like the 1998 penny are often the first step for new collectors. They are easy to find, inexpensive, and perfect for learning how to identify mint marks, errors, and grading differences. Many experienced collectors say that their journey started with coins just like this one. In the end, the 1998 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is not a hidden treasure in most cases, but it is still part of a much larger and more interesting story. It teaches us how coin production works, how small variations happen, and why collectors pay attention to even the smallest details. While most examples are worth only face value, the possibility of rare errors keeps interest alive and makes every coin worth a second look. So the next time you receive a handful of change, take a moment before you spend it. That ordinary-looking penny might not make you rich, and most of the time it won't. But it just might carry a small detail that connects it to a much bigger world of history, mistakes, and collector passion. And that is what keeps the story of the 1998 Lincoln penny alive even today. Imagine holding a small copper coin in your hand that could quietly turn out to be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Now imagine being told that a simple 2003 Lincoln penny with no mint mark might be one of those hidden treasures. That idea has been spreading across coin collecting circles and online videos for years. But what is the real story behind the 2003 no mint mark Lincoln penny? And is there actually anything special hiding in your pocket change? To understand this coin, we first need to go back to what it actually is. The 2003 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series in the United States. This series began in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, and it has become one of the most recognizable coins in American history. The 2003 penny continues that tradition, showing Lincoln's portrait on the front and the familiar Lincoln Memorial on the back. It was produced for everyday use, meaning millions upon millions were minted for circulation. Now here is where the confusion often starts. Many people notice that their 2003 penny has no mint mark and assume something unusual or rare is going on. In reality, this is completely normal for certain U.S. coins. The United States Mint has different facilities that produce coins, mainly in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Denver usually carry a D mint mark. San Francisco coins often carry an S, especially for proof coins, but coins from Philadelphia traditionally do not show a mint mark on circulating Lincoln cents from that time period. So a 2003 penny with no mint mark simply means it was struck in Philadelphia. It is not an error and it is not rare. The year 2003 itself was a routine production year for the U.S. Mint. The economy was stable, and the Mint produced billions of pennies to keep up with everyday commerce. Pennies are the most commonly produced coin in the United States, and by 2003, the design was already familiar and standardized. The goal was not to create rare collectibles, but to produce durable, consistent currency for daily transactions. The design of the 2003 Lincoln penny follows the modern version of the coin that began in 1959. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the word Liberty beside him and the motto "In God We Trust" above. The date appears below his portrait, and depending on the mint, a small mint mark may appear under the date. On the back, you see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that replaced the earlier wheat ears in 1959 and remained until 2008. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny depiction of the statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, which is one of the most interesting hidden details in American coin design. The coin itself is made mostly of copper-plated zinc. By 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition of pennies from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. So the 2003 penny is not solid copper, even though it looks like it. It weighs about 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge with no ridges. This change in composition was done mainly to reduce production costs as the price of copper rose over time. Now let's talk about rarity because this is where a lot of myths begin. A standard 2003 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is not rare at all. In fact, it is extremely common. Millions were produced, and many are still sitting in jars, drawers, and pocket change across the country. If you find one today, it is almost certainly worth only 1 cent in regular circulated condition. However, there is a small area where value can change, and that is condition and errors. Coin collectors pay attention to something called grade, which refers to the condition of the coin. A heavily worn penny is worth face value. But a penny that looks almost brand new, with sharp details and original red color, can be graded much higher. In very high mint state grades, such as MS-67 or MS-68, a 2003 penny can sometimes sell for a few dollars, and in rare cases, slightly more if the coin is exceptionally preserved. But even then, it is not a life-changing treasure. True value in coins usually comes from rare mint errors or special varieties. For the 2003 Lincoln penny, there are no widely known major mint errors that make the no-mint mark version valuable on its own. Some collectors may look for small imperfections like die cracks, off-center strikes, or minor doubling, but these are usually minor and do not create massive value unless they are extremely dramatic and well documented. Even then, values tend to stay in the low to moderate range. One of the most important things to understand is the difference between a normal no-mint mark coin and a missing mint mark error. A 2003 penny without a mint mark is not an error. It is standard Philadelphia production. An actual mint error would be something like a coin that was supposed to have a mint mark but was struck incorrectly due to a production mistake. In modern pennies like 2003, such errors are extremely rare and not commonly found in circulation. When it comes to real market value, auction records and collector sales show a very consistent picture. Most circulated 2003 pennies sell for face value or in bulk rolls. Uncirculated rolls might sell for a small premium, often just a few dollars depending on demand. High-grade certified coins can occasionally reach around $5 to $20. Only under exceptional conditions, such as perfect grading from major grading services, might a coin sell higher, but these are the exception, not the rule. So why do people still talk about this penny like it could be valuable? The answer is simple curiosity and misunderstanding. The phrase "no mint mark" sounds mysterious, almost like something is missing or hidden. That mystery creates excitement, and excitement spreads quickly online. But in reality, numismatics is a careful study of production, condition, and rarity, not just missing markings. If you ever want to identify a genuine 2003 Lincoln penny, there are a few simple things to look for. First, check the date clearly. It should read 2003 below Lincoln's portrait. Second, look under the date for a mint mark. If there is no letter, it is from Philadelphia. If there is a D, it is from Denver. Third, examine the coin's condition. Wear, scratches, and discoloration are normal for circulated coins. Fourth, weigh the coin if possible. A standard penny should be around 2.5 grams due to its zinc core. If it is significantly heavier or lighter, it might be altered or damaged. It is also important to be aware of altered coins. Sometimes, people try to create fake rare coins by removing mint marks or modifying details. For example, someone might try to erase a D mint mark to make a Denver penny look like a rare Philadelphia variety. However, under close inspection, these alterations often leave marks or inconsistencies that trained collectors can spot easily. Authentic coins always have natural, consistent surfaces without signs of tampering. Another interesting fact about the Lincoln penny series is how long it has lasted. The design has remained in circulation for over a century, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. The 2003 penny is just one small chapter in that story, but it represents a massive production period when billions of coins were needed to support everyday commerce across the country. Collectors also appreciate pennies like this not because of high value, but because of historical continuity. Every penny carries the same image of Abraham Lincoln, connecting modern currency with over 100 years of American history. For some collectors, that connection is more valuable than money itself. There is also a psychological side to coins like this. People love the idea that something common might secretly be rare. It creates a kind of treasure hunt feeling in everyday life. That is why videos about rare pennies in your pocket are so popular. But the truth is, real treasure in coin collecting usually requires patience, knowledge, and careful study rather than luck alone. When we look at the 2003 no-mint mark Lincoln penny honestly, it is not a rare coin, but it is still an important piece of everyday history. It represents a time when billions of coins were produced to keep commerce running smoothly, and it continues the legacy of one of America's most iconic designs. So the next time you find a 2003 penny in your change, take a moment to look at it more closely. You are holding a small piece of modern American history, even if it is not a hidden fortune. And that is where the real value of coins often lies, not just in dollars, but in the stories they quietly carry through time. And if you are still wondering whether your coin could be the rare one that changes everything, that curiosity is exactly what keeps coin collecting alive. Because sometimes, the real treasure is not what you find, but what you learn while searching.